The journey of unseen faith. Ever since that first dream, the one that revealed a hidden battle between light and darkness, Michael hadn't been the same. Skepticism no longer weighed him down as it once had, but peace still felt just out of reach. He tried to make sense of what he had seen, but life kept throwing challenges, with his bills piling up, job rejections and relationships at the edges. It was as if every new day came with a test of faith he wasn't prepared to pass. Although the dream had opened his eyes, seeing wasn't the same as believing. A part of him hoped that if he could just understand the meaning behind it all, the uncertainty in his life would disappear. But the harder he tried to make sense of things, the more elusive the answers became. Michael found himself sitting on the edge of his bed, hands buried in his tousled hair. His faith was wearing thin. As his doubts deepened, he whispered, "God, if you're real, why does everything keep falling apart?" Now, as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of his thoughts grew heavy again. What if faith wasn't about having all the answers? What if it was about trusting, even when everything felt uncertain? With a quiet sigh, Michael closed his eyes, hoping sleep would offer some relief. But somewhere deep inside, he felt that familiar stirring, the sense that another dream was waiting for him. He didn't know where it would take him this time, but somehow he knew it would be important. That night, as he drifted off to sleep, just like before, the dream began. He felt a strange sensation like the world was shifting. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a different place, a vast desert under the scorching sun. Michael saw an elderly man with a solemn expression, leading a young boy up a mountain. Something about the scene felt familiar. It was Abraham and Isaac, moments before the intended sacrifice. Michael trailed behind them, his heart heavy with tension. As the boy carried the wood, Abraham looked ahead, silent but resolved. How could he possibly go through with this? Michael wondered. When they reached the summit, Abraham tied Isaac and laid him on the altar. Just as the knife was raised, a voice from heaven boomed, "Do not lay a hand on the boy." A ram appeared, caught in a thicket. Michael stood frozen, watching Abraham's tear-filled eyes reflect gratitude and awe. "Faith is not knowing how it ends, but trusting the one who does," Michael whispered as the scene dissolved around him. Now, Michael found himself standing at the edge of a stormy sea. Lightning split the sky, and waves crashed violently. He saw a man, Peter, stepping onto the water toward Jesus, who stood a short distance away. For a moment, Peter's steps were steady, but as the wind howled, doubt flickered in his eyes. He began to sink. Michael could almost feel Peter's fear as he cried out, "Lord, save me!" Jesus reached out and pulled Peter from the water, saying gently, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" The storm calmed and peace settled over the sea. Michael realized that faith wavers, but Jesus is always near to catch us. The next moment, Michael was surrounded by soldiers and priests marching in silence around the massive walls of Jericho. For 6 days they marched, with no sign of change or evidence of progress. Michael thought, why keep going if nothing is happening? But on the 7th day, after the 7th lap, the priests blew their trumpets and the people shouted. To Michael's amazement, the walls collapsed into rubble before his eyes. Faith, he realized, means trusting God even when you see no results, believing that a breakthrough will come in His time. Now Michael was in a small boat tossed by a fierce storm. The disciples frantically tried to control the sails, but fear gripped them. Jesus lay asleep in the stern, unbothered by the chaos. "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" the disciples shouted as water flooded the boat. Jesus rose and rebuked the storm. "Peace, be still!" At his command, the wind ceased, and the sea became calm. Turning to his disciples, Jesus asked, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Michael felt the words pierce his heart. Faith wasn't just about outcomes, it was about trusting in God's peace amid the storm. With a start, Michael woke up in his room. The quiet hum of city life greeted him, but something had shifted within him. His dream had been too vivid to ignore. It was as though God had taken him on a journey through faith itself. He sat up, feeling an unusual peace. The struggles in his life hadn't changed, but his heart had. In the following days, Michael found himself opening the Bible instead of drowning in despair. He read about Abraham, Peter, and the walls of Jericho, and realized that their faith was not without fear or struggle. They simply chose to trust God anyway. He shared his experiences with his friends, encouraging them to hold on to faith, even when life felt overwhelming. Little by little, his doubts were replaced with confidence in God's promises. Faith wasn't about what he could see, but about trusting the one who could see it all. Just as the heroes of faith acted with trust in God's promises, we too must walk by faith, not by sight. Through trials, God's faithfulness remains, guiding us to victory even when the path is unclear.